Hello.
Hey.
What are we learning about today?
Well, we have a big topic on our agenda, so we're going to jump right into it.
Let's do it.
We're going to be learning about the Mexican Revolution of 1910.
Hell yeah. Do you have what I call Spanish mouth?
Wow, I don't know. What is this?
I find that Spanish is all at the front of your mouth and like it uses different muscles.
Yeah.
So like whenever I've been speaking Spanish for a significant amount of time, like, I don't know, like they're just more ready to go, that part of the mouth.
It's like when you, it's like after band practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your like lips are kind of a little bit buzzed off of playing the mouthpiece.
Yeah, it's just like a different, I don't know, it's like mechanically very different, I find.
Yeah, that's for our brass heads out there.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I guess I've just been reading it, honestly. I haven't really been... I know the pronunciations, so I haven't been practicing it, but we'll see how that comes out.
Well, now I'm going to be judging.
Yeah, I'll rely on my natural skill, which may not be there.
All right, let's do it.
So, to start off with, we're going to talk about kind of, okay, why are we learning this, right? What we call the learning targets. The Mexican Revolution is one of the biggest revolutionary stories in the 20th century.
Okay.
And I think it kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah, I feel like we only know about it because, again, we toured a bunch of museums whenever we would go to Mexico. So, or like mom would reference like one of the figures or something like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is super important. It's before the Russian Revolution even. I mean, it spans it. It goes from 1910 to 1920, so it's a decade also. So there's a ton of history there.
Yeah.
A major upheaval of Mexican society. And like you mentioned, our mom will mention it, some people in Mexico still like kind of reference the revolution in, especially when talking about like local history or like family lore or things like that.
I feel like, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I feel like it's a very reverent kind of reference usually, and like I think it's because of the time that we grew up to, where like Mexico's politics like were super corrupt, and so people like really looked back fondly on like some of the revolutionary figures.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Some of the figures. Now, when we get into it, we're going to see everything so complicated, and we might come away from this or guess a greater understanding of why people have certain understandings of the revolution. Just because there's like real dark shit that happens and it's just like super tumultuous. You have to like find something about it, right?
Yeah.
And I guess when we are diving into it, we'll be focusing on the social revolution that takes place within it.
Hell yeah.
Okay. I mean, you know, we're a communist podcast here.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be looking at people's demands for equality, for justice, for socialist and at sometimes kind of anarchist, a reckoning, a leveling of society.
Yeah.
That it's this kind of like swelling up from the bottom, that there's going to be like these big leaders doing things, but the popular masses are still going to like make their demands seen and heard and really reverberate throughout society.
Cool. Sounds great.
Yeah. We'll also see some shitty things like American imperialism.
Oh, shocker. I hate when that guy shows up.
All right. So speaking of the bad stuff, let's start out with the precursor. The background to why there's a revolution. Usually something shitty was happening. And in this case, it was a guy named Porfirio Diaz.
Yeah, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah. He was shitty. He was president of Mexico and was first elected in 1877. And then he had kind of like one term worth of interim before he came back in, and then like just kept rigging the elections to win.
Okay, great.
And it was, so there was this corrupt dictatorship called the Porfiriato.
Okay.
And he was very business friendly. All right. Think like just like mustachio twirling guy, monopoly man, but as president, you know?
He does have a good mustache though, if I remember correctly, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is an excellent conflict for facial hair.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the walrus right there.
Yeah, it's great. And so yeah, he's like a super sellout, and he's all about, you know, making sure that foreign companies can come in and exploit people. He's definitely that, like, you know, exploiter, or like how did Galliano put it? The class that is like
the sub-imperialist.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found particularly shitty was forcing indigenous communities like that had kind of communally held lands. Even since the Spanish times, the Spanish kind of let them do that.
Yeah.
He forced that to be broken up and sold.
Oh.
They lost 95% of their lands.
What a shithead.
Yeah. So, more and more land, fewer and fewer hands. And people just kind of forced to like work for absentee landowners of these big haciendas and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone's like, this sucks. We want to do something about it. Another thing he did that was ruthless was he expanded this paramilitary force called the Rurales.
Okay.
Kind of a rural military group. Yeah, it was his own private army, though, like kind of just loyal to him, basically.
Yeah, okay.
So he could send them around like he needs to evict these people from their communally held lands, whatever.
Just starts a gang. Great.
Yeah, yeah. When you put it that way, sounds even better. There was growing labor unrest. There were like major strikes in 1906 and 1907, kind of coinciding with an economic downturn. And he didn't fuck around with that, and he sent in, the troops to quash that. He didn't care.
Yeah, yeah.
At that time, he's kind of facing growing unrest in terms of labor. He's also facing political opposition.
Okay.
There was this party formed in 1905, strangely enough, called the Mexican Liberal Party.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like it's going to do anything too radical.
Yeah, right.
But they were actually anarchists, so maybe they were just like disguising that.
Okay, great.
I mean, I dare you to go call an anarchist a liberal, in a dark alley today.
Yeah, you will get a Doc Martin on your neck.
But this was led by an interesting fellow named Ricardo Flores Magón.
Okay.
Who was a journalist. He was an anarchist as well, and he was kind of agitating in his anarchist newspapers and stuff for social change, for uprisings and things. And he actually ends up spending most of the later years of his life in exile in the United States because, he was doing this shit,
Yeah, and makes
Diaz
sense.
Said, get out. He was still always like agitating against Diaz and the government and, for anarchy. Eventually, in the United States, he actually gets sentenced under the World War I like anti-sedition laws,
Oh, what the fuck? For writing about a different country?
No, for writing anti-war stuff there. He was like, fuck the war. Yeah, and so they convicted him of obstructing the war effort and put him in prison for 20 years where he died.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but he was kind of like the intellectual, some people refer to him as kind of the intellectual, forefather of the Mexican Revolution, in that he's kind of like behind the Mexican Liberal Party, which is like sparking these initial kind of unrest things.
Okay. Question.
Yeah.
I don't know if and when this will play a part in this, but from what I understand, the church also like was super in charge of things in certain ways, like kind of similar to what we saw in Russia, right?
Yeah. So the church was generally a reactionary or conservative force. Diaz had kind of come to an understanding with them. He kind of started his life as more of a liberal figure and then, of course, gets more conservative in power.
Weird how that happens. Oh, my gosh.
In every instance, we're pretty much going to see the church supporting the conservative side, at least, or perhaps the reactionary side if they want to actually, go back to someone else. From before this time, we're talking back in the time of Benito Juarez and stuff, like in the mid-1800s. Okay, Mexican liberalism was very anti-clerical because the church was on that conservative side and had a whole lot of land and had a whole lot of government power in that way. They had like an official role. And so liberalism was kind of about reducing that role, reducing their power. And so it's kind of like we saw in the Spanish Civil War that they were, on the right.
Yeah, okay. Wait, who was Benito Juarez? I thought he was going to show up in this.
He's not. No, he was
he's earlier.
Yes, he was before this, a few presidents back. Before Diaz.
Sorry, y'all. He was on some money, so I thought he would show up in this. Back to the Liberal Party.
Yeah, back to the Liberal Party. So this anarchist group, we're going to see these guys kind of recur throughout, or at least this kind of anarchist tendency or we're talking about the social revolution here. So again, that yearning for the people for kind of radical change, economic democracy, that'll be something we see.
Okay.
1910 rolls around, and Diaz, who has been running for re-election, he's kind of old by now, and he promised in an interview, like, I'm not going to run for re-election.
Don't believe that.
Well, good idea, because he ran for re-election. And this really weird guy named Francisco E. Madero challenged him in that election.
Okay.
And he's a really weird guy. He comes from a super rich family. He was a vegetarian, which was kind of weird at the time.
That's super weird at the time.
He was into homeopathy. He was into spiritism, which is like...
Okay, so this like hippie guy runs.
Yeah, that and like an occultist sort of. He thought actually that he was a medium, that he could speak to spirits and stuff. He thought he had could commune with his dead 4-year-old brother Raul.
Oh my God. Okay, so a witch is running.
Yeah.
He's like, I got my crystals. I'm ready.
Yes, basically.
What the fuck?
And he's running on anti-re-election. This guy shouldn't be running again, is what he's saying.
Me, right? A literal wizard, should be there instead.
But, I mean, he was, in some respects, though, seen as respectable middle class because of his economic station, you know.
You could do that shit if you were rich. Like, oh, that's just charming.
Yes, yeah, like, that's eccentric, right? But it's fine. Yeah. Speaking of which, just a side note, we can cut this if we want, but there was a guy who used to run against Porfirio Diaz in all those rigged elections.
Yeah, he was just the guy.
Yeah, but he was like this eccentric guy who always said that he won and like believed that he won and saw himself as the president of Mexico. And people would just like hail him in restaurants and stuff when he was around, and they would just be like, "Hey, Presidente, come on over."
Oh my God, I bet.
It was pretty great.
That's hilarious. Just a designated fall guy.
Yeah. So, thing about Madero. So, he is kind of, that single issue, this guy shouldn't be running again. But he's kind of going out there making promises. You know, he's not a radical guy. He's kind of a liberal reformer-ish.
Okay.
But he comes across, I guess, when he's giving all these different groups, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, but very vague. So he comes across as kind of a blank slate.
All right, hope and change Madero.
Very much so. Yeah. People project onto him what they think that, but he really means this.
Oh my God. Yes. Classic liberal campaign.
Yeah. So for those of us who came up in the 2008 times and used to be liberals and things, this one cut steep.
Yeah, right.
So Madero campaigns, and he gets a lot of support. And so much so that Diaz throws him in jail before the election.
Okay, cool thing to do.
Madero somehow escapes and flees to San Antonio.
Okay.
Then the election happens, and everybody was like, cool, Madero, yeah. But somehow he lost in a landslide. Who knows how?
Yeah, some boats fell off a truck. Yeah,
right,
yeah, weird.
So Diaz was just like, sweet, I won again.
Oh my God.
But the thing is, Madero was like, fuck you, no you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's October 5th, 1910. He calls him out in what's called the Plan of San Luis de Potosí.
Okay.
All right. Now, the thing about plans, you're going to hear them several times, is this is like a big fuck you statement.
Love that. More plans should be. Like at the beginning of the meeting, instead of an agenda, you're just like, here's our fuck you statement.
Yeah. Yeah. So you call somebody out, and you say why they're bad and why you're good and why you're rebelling against them, basically, is what.
Okay. He goes on Twitter.
Yeah. He does a post.
Does a call out post. Not a call-in post. This is strictly call-out.
This is, yeah. And the plan of San Luis de Potosí says, Diaz, you're terrible. Let's do a rebellion. On November 20th, everybody rise up with me, Madero, as the provisional president.
Wow, I love that. Meet me here. Time and date.
Flash mob rebellion.
Everyone brings swords or whatever. Bring your machetes.
Yeah, bring guns, please. So Madero kind of becomes the first popular leader of the Mexican Revolution in this way. He's got the support of middle-class liberal reform types like him.
Yeah,
who want kind of respectable government, law and order, bourgeois democracy. Workers think that he's going to be better towards unions than Diaz was low bar, right? I mean,
Yeah, right.
and peasants think that, he did mention land reform. He might want to do land reform.
He really is the blue no matter who of Mexico.
Yeah. So, he basically declared rebellion. So war breaks out, revolution.
Okay.
We'll have several of these bouts throughout, but this is, they're going to be a little bit abbreviated because it's military history.
Yeah, who
But
cares?
we'll hit the important stuff in terms of what the moving parts.
Okay.
The sides here, you've got the government forces called the Porfiristas, the people who supported Porfirio Diaz
Yeah.
staying in power. So like the federal army. On the other side, you have the broad group of people called the Maderistas, the people for Madero.
Okay.
But this is a real big mix of forces.
Yeah, yeah.
In the south, we're not talking very, very south like Yucatan Peninsula, but south of the capital of Mexico, specifically in the state of Morelos,
Okay.
you have a fellow named Emiliano Zapata.
I've heard about this guy. Another sick stash.
Yes, he was very proud of it.
He should be.
And he's a real cool guy. Like I said, leader in the state of Morelos. And he was all about fighting for the rights of the peasants, the campesinos.
Hell yeah.
And he was all against the large landowners, the hacendados, the people who own the haciendas, right?
One thing that we didn't set up that I feel like we should really quickly
Yeah.
is, I think from what I know about Mexico, I think this happens in a lot of revolutions. Whenever they rebelled against Spain back in the day, it had the potential for a lot of revolutionary, ideals. And then it just ended up being the bourgeoisie back in control. So
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that, I guess.
Yeah, so that kind of trend we're also, sadly going to see here.
Damn it, spoilers.
Yeah. But that's true, yeah. So we're talking, this is the heady days of the beginning of the revolution. People have big dreams right now. And so Zapata had started out in Morelos as a Pueblo leader there, the leader of one of the towns there. He had started out kind of peacefully negotiating this sort of land reform, kind of socialist style, with the hacienda owners.
Okay.
And basically saying hey, give us some land, we're going to please redistribute some land.
Okay.
A lot of them were jerks and they were like, no.
Yeah, why would they?
The government there was not doing anything about it because they didn't really have an interest there. So he eventually was just like, fuck that, Only a few people kind of voluntarily did that. So he started just getting the people armed and went over there and just took over the land.
Oh, yeah.
And redistributed it that way. So this figure, Zapata, who's doing this direct action redistribution of land, he looks at Madero, and this is kind of, this is a liberal politician, the sorts of people who were telling him, you can't redistribute land. But he had, again, mentioned land reform, and if you got to choose him or Diaz...
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, it's not, maybe this guy's going to be better. So he agrees to support him.
Okay.
And in 1911, he leads the Liberation Army of the South. And so this is part of that whole anti-government side. He ends up winning some important battles of Jojutla and Cuautla.
A lot of vowels in that.
Yeah, UAU. And so, yeah, those are pretty important battles. That's in kind of the south of the capital.
Okay, cool.
In the north, you've got a General Pascual Orozco.
Okay.
And a very famous bandit turned revolutionary named Francisco Villa, a.k.a. Pancho Villa.
I have heard many a song telling of his tales.
Yeah. Villa, he was a bandit, and he has the kind of backstory that's very uncertain and murky that you would bring to a D&D table if you forgot to do the backstory.
I love that.
Mysterious. No one knows. That's Pancho
Nobody
Villa.
knows. I love that.
But he ends up running a bandit gang in Chihuahua and is approached by one of Madero's representatives. Hey, we're doing revolution. Love to have you on board.
Okay.
He basically tells him, you've been doing this bandit stuff, right? But why don't you, knock off the hacienda owners and like give that to the poor. Become popular, man. Like people would love that. You know, and he's like, that actually sounds really cool.
I would love that.
Let's do it. So he joins. In the North, there's also this very interesting, almost side note to the revolution called the Magonista Rebellion of 1911. It's an anarchist rebellion.
Interesting.
That happens within the revolution.
Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely off the beaten path. It's in Baja, California.
Okay, yeah.
And January 29th, 1911, the Liberal Party of Mexico, who you mentioned before, they do a little anarchist revolution there.
Okay, cool.
And they take Mexicali, they liberate Mexicali, and soon thereafter Tijuana as well.
Nice.
And I mean, so they're anarchists. They're like, we're abolishing property. We're doing an anarchist workers' commune. Cool shit, you know?
All right, great.
They have some American help, but not the kind that we actually hate.
Okay.
This came from the IWW, the International Workers of the World in Los Angeles.
That's amazing. They're like, there's some shit going down. Let's go.
Yeah, literally. The Socialist Party of America was kind of involved too, and they sent volunteers to this. And so by the end of February, there's like 100 Americans who had joined the Magonista Rebellion, including a very famous wobbly songwriter named Joe Hill, which just seemed like, wow, I didn't know that was the guy who would go, do revolution somewhere. But
that's
really
hilarious. Cool. Like the one time I'm okay with us sending some troops over. Right?
The Magonista Rebellion started against Diaz, right? You know, but it doesn't last long. It's crushed within the year. So that's why it's kind of a side note. By the time it's crushed, it's actually crushed by the next government that comes after Diaz. So it's kind of like a little bit of turn betrayal sort of thing. It's like an interim government.
So I did just look up the flag for the Liberal Party. It's fucking rad.
What does that look like? I forgot.
It is a hunk, and he's holding a flag that says Tierra y Libertad.
Oh, hell yeah, that one.
And yeah, it's just fucking rad. Partido Liberal Mexicano.
That is pretty. Is he working out while? No, he's got like a hammer.
A hammer. I thought he was too. Like he stopped in his barbell reps just to lift a flag. Awesome. More hunks on flags, please.
Yes, that's a good look. We have like a jacked Uncle Sam on the American flag instead.
No, I don't want him. No. He's nasty. He's pro-military.
True. All right, so let's sidestep the rest of the military history. Ultimately, Madero's forces end up winning.
Okay, great. No more Diaz.
Yeah, by May 1911, Diaz starts like negotiating with the revolutionary forces because he realizes he's lost, but Madero's kind of such a softie that they, you know, there's no like storm in, put the guy on the wall sort of thing.
I'm sure there's not.
They just do a treaty with him called the Treaty of Ciudad Juarez.
The guy who said he wasn't going to run anymore, let's just like talk it out. I'm sure it'll work this time.
Yeah, it has its pluses and its minuses. Diaz does resign and goes into exile.
Okay.
And then interim president takes his place. And that's when the anarchists, who they're sitting there saying, like, this treaty's fucking dumb. The interim government is like, if you think it's so dumb, we're going to crush you. And they do.
Cool friends.
But the treaty doesn't really change the structure of the government at all. You're still sitting there with the old courts, the old judges appointed by Diaz, the government run by most of the same people. The interim president, named Francisco León de la Barra, just basically wants to put things back the way they were.
He looks like a guy who wants to put things back the way they were. Like he would walk into a room and say, what is all this?
This is too much racket. Yeah.
Okay. He was known to conservatives as, quote, the white president or the pure president.
That's kind of weird. I think by white, though, they may mean like white Russia, sort of like, you know, imperial in that, or like, you know, conservative.
Okay. Like whites and the reds.
Yeah.
Okay. Weird nickname, though. Don't like it.
Maybe. They may just mean... He was white. I don't know.
He was super white.
And so he doesn't really do much in terms of reforms. He also ends up sending troops to Morelos because Zapata is like not happy about the treaty. And he hadn't disarmed his people at all.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, so the interim government's like, you can't do that, sending in troops. And anyway, they're not around for long. In November, the election comes. Madero wins.
Yep.
Because everybody was like, okay, yeah, duh.
Why did they even have another guy as interim president? That just seems like a waste of everyone's time.
And it was, yeah. A lot of people said that, and it comes across as kind of like losing steam, you know? It's like, we could have just taken power right there. But instead, you had to have a little bit of window where Diaz's people were basically still in power and could kind of undermine you, you know?
Yeah. That seems useless.
Yeah, not a good move. But the spirits probably told him to. Proceeds to kind of let everybody down. He doesn't really change much in power. He tries to like chart a middle course. All right. He's got reactionaries who hate him, of course. Conservatives who also don't like him, but like he's trying not to scare them.
Of course. Because that always works.
Yeah. Good idea, right?
So he gets everyone to hate him.
Oh, yeah.
Classic move.
Yeah. Liberals and radicals, you know, I mean, like liberals, he'd promised some stuff to. Radicals, he was going to let them, like they wanted to do way more shit than he wanted to. So this, of course, how's it going to end?
We just go back and forth between conservative and liberal forever? Because that's what we're doing here.
No. Well, they're going to do that a little bit, yeah. So here, Madero, so some of the things he does, I mean, he just digs a hole for himself, right? So one of the things he actually changes is liberalizing the press. Hey, you guys can like print stuff now. Problem is, they just go out there and say, yeah, Madero fucking sucks.
This guy sucks. That's really embarrassing.
Political parties spring up all over the place. They're, you know, not really in a rush to be like, we're the, you know, another party that agrees with Madero. Like they don't like him. He gives workers the right to organize and strike.
That's good.
And they do.
And he doesn't like it.
And, well, yeah, he doesn't like it because it, like, scares the shit out of, like, the business owners and everything who he loves, you know. And they start talking like, this Madero guy doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe we should, like, take care of him. I don't know. And he doesn't do land reform.
Okay. Of course he doesn't. Yeah. Like.
Yeah. I mean, he came from a wealthy family. That just was not his class. He was law and order. You know, he was, let's do things the way we have done things, but with a good guy in charge.
Exactly. It's like the problem was just that one guy. Now I'm here. It's fine.
Didn't pass social reforms like working conditions or, you know, better hours or pay or whatever. Like none of that.
Cool guy.
Yeah. So people didn't like that in the North. One of his erstwhile allies, General Orozco, turned on him.
Okay.
Organized his own army, issued the Plan Orozquista.
Okay.
That was in 1912, you know, declared rebellion and was actually crushed pretty quickly.
Oh, dang it. Okay.
There were other rebellions going along in the North, too. There were conservative ones, and they got crushed, and their generals were imprisoned in Mexico City. We'll get back to them. Yeah. But another one I want to talk about is Zapata.
All right, back to this guy.
Yeah, so Zapata really never, you know, disarmed. He was pissed that land reform didn't happen. Because, I mean, you know, that's what he's all about. He's all about you know, fighting for the people. So he says, obviously, I've been fooled once. I'm not going to be fooled again. And he publishes his own plan, the Plan of Ayala.
Okay, love it. What's his shitpost say?
So, yeah, this is all about what he's going to do better than Madero. Like, Madero sucks.
All right.
Betrayed the revolution, not doing land reform, not even good at being a president. Get rid of him. He's in rebellion against him, you know, and his group is going to be radical. They're going to expropriate property from the landlords and the bosses. They're going to return it to the people. They're going to do land redistribution.
That's a fire track right there. I'm into it.
Yeah. His organization for that was, we're going to return to rightful owners where their land had been stolen. So, like, if it had been sold off and stuff, but you had the deed to it. They're also just going to take a third of land from, like, monopolistic landowners and give it to the landless. And if they complain about it, they're going to take the other 2/3 of it, too.
That's amazing. I would, like, take it in the meanest way possible. Just be like... I don't even know. I would just like spray paint dicks like next door or something. Like, this guy sucks, so that they extra complain about it.
It's like, oops, well, I'm taking the rest. It's pretty cool. They come, you know, they take that slogan from the Mexican Liberal Party, Tierra y Libertad.
Hell yeah.
And his forces start to grow because he's seen as like, a point of resistance against this bullshit regime. And what they do, they start doing some guerrilla warfare there in Morelos. It simmers for a long time throughout the rest of the revolution.
Okay, cool.
And this is where we get back to those generals because...
Uh-oh.
What do you think's going to happen with them?
Based on Christine's rules for revolution, one of which is kill your prisoners, I bet these guys are going to get out and starting some of their own little shit posts and doing their own shit.
Yeah, this is something called the 10 Tragic Days.
Oh, God. Not a great title. No.
Yeah. Here's the plot. Okay, those generals in prison in the capital, their allies in the city start agitating for their release. Hey, it's fucked up that they're in prison, blah, blah, blah. And they rile up some military cadets to do a riot at the prison.
Fuck.
They just scare the prison into releasing them.
Oh my gosh.
The general is Felix Diaz, who is the nephew of Porfirio Diaz.
Oh my God, he should definitely have been killed. Okay.
And Bernardo Reyes. They were freed, and then they immediately, one of them jumps on a horse and starts, leading the people, they just start doing general shit and leading a coup.
Always kill your prisoners, guys. Ugh.
If you're on our side. If you're not on our side, you're bad.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So they start leading a coup. They start capturing the city to, try to force Madero to resign. Mm-hmm. And as the battle rages in the streets of Mexico City, a jerk who just so happens to be the American ambassador.
Weird how that guy's a jerk.
Yeah, Henry Lane Wilson.
Okay, it's a nerd name. Let me see his pic. Confirmed nerd. Got the centered part. With he's got a knockoff Tesla look. It's not good. It's not good.
Henry Lane Wilson, American ambassador, is helping to coordinate the different groups of the coup.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Helpful.
Not only that, if you thought that was helpful, he's also going out there on the international stage in his capacity as ambassador and telling people, oh yeah, Madero pretty much already fell. He's done basically.
Oh my gosh, what a shithead.
Just talking a whole bunch of shit about Madero. Just undermining him. They're going to fail any second.
Wow.
They're super evil anyway. They're super bad. When the coup, when the coup guys start doing things and the government comes out and fights them, he's like, this is a real problem. The government is crushing these people. This is terrible. Look at all this bad stuff. They're oppressive.
Not a problem when they crush the anarchists, but not generals. Those guys are nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so President Madero, he's like, well, this is going to be okay. He's got a pretty good general, Victoriano Huerta.
This J.K. Simmons looking motherfucker.
Well, Huerta had helped him crush other rebellions. And they figure he's going to do the same thing here. The problem was Huerta had secretly joined with the rebels.
Of course he did. He is a general. The rebellion is from other generals. They're friends.
Okay, so here's what he does. He secretly joined the rebels, but he's been put in charge of defense of the city. So he just does a bad job of it.
He just opens up that gate.
Well, but not as conspicuously. So he's like, oh man, these guys are really good. They just keep beating us and stuff.
Oh, I don't know how.
Yeah. And so the reveal only comes after he has really put the rebels in the driver's seat almost. And he's finished eating breakfast with the president's brother.
Okay.
When afterwards he's just kind of whistles some guys in and they go in and arrest the president's brother.
Oh, I love this messy drama. That's very good. Oh.
Yeah. So soon thereafter they arrest Madero, also the president. And I mean, by that point the matter is basically settled. The coup leaders and the U.S. ambassador pressure Madero and his VP to resign.
Wow. That really is 10 tragic days. The Mexicans know how to come up with a great nickname for everything, and that's a good one.
Yes, for sure. And so they do. They resign on February 19th, and Huerta has the next guy in line appoint him to the government and then resign. So he inherits the presidency. He was obsessed with doing it the right way, even though he'd just done a coup.
That's so weird. Listen, I know I just did a coup, but let's be reasonable here.
Right. And so then they took Madero and his vice president, Benito Juarez, out and executed them.
Okay, they did kill the prisoners. Shit.
Yeah, Huerta ordered it. Ambassador Wilson knew about it.
All right, great.
So the first chapter of the revolution, Madero's rule, done.
So while this was going on, were like the Zapatistas still running around doing shit?
Yeah, they were still mainly local in Morelos there.
Okay, cool.
In that region. When Huerta comes to power, he, of course, rules like a dictator.
Shocker.
Yeah. He's an asshole. He's oppressive. Uses the army to crush everything that goes against him. He's all about militarization. Mm-hmm. Super brutal. Surprisingly enough, people really weren't into that.
They didn't love being crushed under that sexy boot?
No, they didn't. And so by March 1913, this is like a few weeks into his regime. The governor of Kwajila, a guy named Venustiano Carranza, launched a rebellion. He did his own plan.
New plan, who this?
So he was a reformer, but not very radical. He was also kind of a very wealthy guy. But he was against Huerta. He thought he was an asshole, Thought he could do a better job running the country. So he issues the Plan of Guadalupe.
The confidence of a rich man. I love it.
Yeah, they can do anything. They can fly into space, So the Plan of Guadalupe created what was called the Constitutionalist Army.
Okay.
They're basically saying like, hey, what you're doing, it's unconstitutional. We're going to, we're going to restore it. Mm-hmm. And it put, of course, himself in charge.
Classic.
As Primer Jefe.
Good title, though.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
That's classy.
Obviously, he said, Huerta sucks. They're illegitimate. We're declaring rebellion. We're going to take power. We're going to do elections to where I'll be official, president as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
So Carranza declares rebellion, and he teams up with some other generals in the north. There's a new guy who will play prominently. Alvaro Obregón.
Decent mustache, nothing to write home about.
And so he's like a really good general.
Okay.
Whatever skills are involved in being a good general, he had him. Like I said, he'll come into play later.
Okay.
Pancho Villa, also allied with Carranza, but did not officially join like the Constitutionalists in saying like, oh, I want Carranza to be in charge necessarily, but he didn't like Huerta.
Yeah.
And this is the same as Zapata in the South, whose rebellion was still going on. He's like, yeah, man, I'll help y'all out, but I'm not really signing on to the whole program,
That's fine.
I have my own plan. It's cooler than yours.
I do my own thing. Okay. I don't know. Mutual agreements.
Yeah, a loose alliance. Basically, the Constitutionalists, that's Carranza and friends, they end up mopping up the government. I mean, it's pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
Huerta he's pretty bad at this. And so he even manages to get the United States to invade Mexico in the process.
Oh, okay.
At this point, the United States didn't like him because of how he had come to power, because even though it was their ambassador who was helping, it was from Taft's administration, and then they had changed to Wilson, and Wilson was like, what the fuck?
That's hilarious.
And they also didn't like that he was just bad at keeping the country together, apparently.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they ended up invading Mexico. You want to hear how that goes down? Because this is actually kind of not as well known amongst Americans.
Yeah.
The invasion and occupation of Veracruz was America's response to something called the Tampico Affair, which was really, really stupid.
Okay.
The Tampico Affair started because the U.S. had sent the Navy to Tampico Bay to protect American lives and interests. You know how they say with anything that goes on overseas.
That's the excuse for anything. That's like us picking up a pizza. We could definitely say that it's for American lives and interests. Like they will use that for anything.
In this case, it was to protect petroleum properties and the American families who owned or worked there and their fancy homes. That's why they were there.
Okay.
On April 9th, 1914, one of their ships ran low on coal. Seriously, I told you this was stupid. And so they they sent some guys in a boat, and they're like, go pick up some coal from this German dude we bought it from and bring it back. But on the way, They get arrested by Mexican forces there, by federal troops.
Okay.
And pretty soon they realize, oh shit, these are American sailors. We got to send them back. And they send them back
awkward.
like within an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
But the Americans are like, what the fuck you do to us? Like, how dare you, you know? And Mexico's like, sorry.
It's like trying to arrest a cop. Like, they're going to get really fucking pissed about it.
Yeah, and they're like,
you know who I am?
We didn't mean to. But America said, like, no, you got to, like, do a formal apology. You got to do, like a, you know, your ships fire all your guns, like a salute thing. Do all this sort of stuff to make it up. And Mexico was just like, give them the middle finger, you know, like, no, we're not doing that.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. And America went to war on that. April 20th, Congress approved an invasion.
Oh my God. Because someone got held up for less than an hour. Okay.
Yeah. And so, they invade. And within a month, 400 Mexican soldiers and 800 civilians had been killed. And the U.S. had captured Veracruz.
What the fuck, guys? That's insane.
Yeah. Good old imperialism. They occupied it until November 23rd, 1914. Okay,
cool.
So, you know, if anyone's traveling to Mexico and you're wondering, why is there anti-American sentiment here? There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
Including the historical. By that point, Huerta had already lost.
Okay.
On the 23rd of June, the Battle of Zacatecas, where Pancho Villa conquered the city, interestingly enough, in defiance of Carranza's orders.
Listen, I know we're trying to take down this big bad guy. Don't try to take over the main city, though. That'd be way too much.
Yeah. But that actually does Huerta in, and he ends up resigning and fleeing into exile on July 15th, taking, just as kind of something for the road, 500,000 marks worth of gold.
Another classic move.
Yeah. General Obregón and Carranza enter Mexico City unopposed. They sign treaties with the next in line guy after Huerta had fled.
Gotta do things right.
Yeah, so they recognized, you know, the Constitutionalists, they're the official government, whatever. But I think we kind of opened up a little topic here, that disagreement between the factions. So we saw, you know, Villa and Carranza kind of having an argument.
Yeah, if I were Villa, I'd just like put my feet up on the desk and be like, this is mine now, bitches.
Well, he didn't get there first. Specifically because Carranza didn't want him to get there first. He actually like sent him on some missions to like make sure he didn't.
Oh, because the battle was in Zacatecas. Okay, got it.
The revolutionary factions, Obregón and Carranza, by this point were kind of closely allied together. But like we said, Villa had kind of soured on him, and Zapata was, you know, he was focused on the Plan de Ayala. He was not, you know, he's trying to do land reform. He's trying to do social revolution. This political, you know, stuff with, hey, let's tie myself to this one leader. You know.
No, not for him.
So there's kind of a question at this point, once Huerta's gone, what's going to happen with these four loosely allied figures?
Okay.
So they schedule a meeting. All right, Zoom meeting, October 1914. They send the invite. It's called the Convention of Calientes.
Okay, great.
And so they were like, we'll figure out all the details there. But the thing is, it fails. First of all, only one of them actually goes.
Cool meeting.
Yeah, Obregón shows up. The rest of them send their people. Like,
hilarious. Him and a bunch of interns.
Yes, pretty much. And they're all like, oh, this guy's cool, you know. Because, I mean, he's like a hero of the revolution at that point. And so they send representatives. Carranza's guys, they're like, Carranza needs to be in charge. He's the best. Zapata's guys are like, land reform. We got to do land reform. We're here for the peasants, the campesinos. That's what we're all about. Villa's guys at this point are just like, fuck Carranza. I don't want him in charge. That guy was an asshole to me. I don't want to see him. Yeah. And Obregón, meanwhile, he's there like, he actually wants to get an agreement done. He's like,
oh, poor guy.
Yeah, he's like, I thought we were here to work this out. Like, what the hell? But he, I guess temperamentally, is more like Carranza. So he's more, a little bit more moderate, a little bit more, let's do things in an organized way. Definitely not as chaotic or anarchistic. Not in an ideological way, but just in terms of opposition to government rule. Yeah. You know, as Zapata or Villa. But the convention breaks down, and it splits again with the convention of Zapata and Villa declaring themselves to be like the real government of Mexico. and calling on Carranza to resign.
Okay, great.
He doesn't. He says, "You guys suck." And civil war ensues again.
Okay.
So the two sides now, see if we're following here, because it's a lot, right?
It's the land reform guys versus Corrales guys.
Yeah.
Moderates versus liberals. We're just gonna kind of keep shifting to the left a little bit more.
I wish, yeah, that would be nice. So yeah, Zapata and Villa, called the conventionists. Those are the, like you said, the land reform, plan of Ayala, more socialistic policies, right?
No, it's not as good of a name, but okay.
Yeah. And their supporters were mainly peasants and the poor, right? And their power base is in the north of the country and the center of the country.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like you said, the Carrancistas or the Constitutionalists, the people following Carranza and Obregón, who support that original plan of Guadalupe, they want Carranza in charge, more moderate. So their supporters tended to be wealthier, middle class sort of folks.
Makes sense.
Clustered on the coastal states of Veracruz and Tamaulipas.
I wonder if, because there's like a lot of resource extraction there.
Could be, yeah. That kind of makes sense from a class composition.
Like fruit and shit.
Yeah. All right, so.
New war.
Carranza pretty much quickly realizes he's outnumbered. Villa and Zapata are right there, next door to the capital with more men than he's got. So he takes the fuck off.
That's hilarious.
He goes to Veracruz, and so the conventionists, so Villa and Zapata move in victoriously. December 1914. There's a famous photograph of Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata in the presidential palace.
Everyone there looks pretty drunk. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, I'm sure they were having a blast, dude. This is where he said, kick your feet up on the desk, man.
Yes, love it.
I mean, at the time, presidents stayed in Chapultepec Castle.
Yeah.
So this is where they were.
Hell yeah, I love that place. It's a nice place, nice castle.
Yeah. And so when you were talking about like the potential of the revolution, right? This is, I think, where we really see one of the biggest inflection points or like turning points, right? Where it could have gone another way.
Uh-oh, what happens?
You got Villa and you got Zapata.
Yeah, everyone likes them.
They got an army, 150,000 strong. Like you said, they're popular. They're in the capital. They could just say, we're in charge now, we're taking over, and then go, as a force, go hunt down the opposition.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, like, people are writing songs about these guys, like, very popular.
Yeah. They could say, the old government, it's gone. We're doing and maybe this ideologically is beyond what they were thinking about, let's do a worker state. They weren't Marxists, let's say. They weren't.
Yeah.
But people could have turned out in larger numbers, and that may have been enough to be able to, carry out the plan of Ayala at least. But they did not do that.
Okay, what'd they do?
So instead, they just kind of go in different directions. They're like, this was fun, dude.
Had a great time. See you next war.
Yeah. And they're like, we're going to, we'll help each other. I'm sure it'll work itself out. Just let me know when you need help,
Okay.
And Zapata goes back to Morelos.
They just go home?
Yeah, because they each I guess they each kind of care more about their region.
They're very local boys.
They're just also not that big into like military strategy, logistics, that sort of thing. They're more good at leading big forces into big battles, and it's just like, let's do this,
Yeah, they're very guerrilla warfare, very
that too.
Localized kind of stuff.
And so Zapata goes back to Morelos and focuses there and in surrounding states. And he goes back there and he's like, wow, I mean, Carranza's guys, they're not even coming after me, and that's pretty easy. So he just starts like working on local administration, doing land reform and shit there.
That's pretty cool.
Which is kind of cool, but the reason that he's able to do that so easily is because Carranza was sending all his guys after Villa in the north.
Oh, that sucks.
And so Villa's there getting attacked by the Constitutionalists mercilessly, dude. Because, he's got a bigger army, better trained, and he's the bigger threat. So they go after him first. Obregón ends up defeating him at the Battle of Celaya in April 1915, losing an arm in the process and also failing to commit suicide.
Oh, shit. Okay, Pancho Villa.
Yeah, Villa, his guys are the ones who took Obregon's arm off.
Oh, okay. I thought Pancho Villa tried to do it. Okay, Obregon, okay.
Lost his arm, like a cannon fire sort of thing.
Holy
Blasted
shit.
his arm off. And then he was like, the pain, and tries to kill himself. But the aide that gave him the pistol didn't put any bullets in it, so he didn't die. And
Very dramatic.
It was like a, turn of fate sort of thing.
Yeah, I am hearing the soap opera music we grew up with right now. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. Oh, man. Pretty soon the conventionists were basically on the run. And meanwhile, they're not good at offering each other aid like they were supposed to. Like,
Yeah, they're supposed to be buds.
I think it's Zapata asked for some ammunition at some point, and Villa like sends him some, but like really slowly, like it's a bad shipment or something, and it takes forever. And Villa's kind of like, man, that sucks, you know. But they each do this thing where they kind of like read into it and like, that guy's kind of, you know, a jerk for doing that.
Aww.
So when Villa's like, hey, dude, send me some troops, Zapata's like, you know, send you like 100 guys, you know, like. Barely any.
Man.
And
Bummer.
it's just very disorganized. Add that element into it, and it's, you know, guys, you gotta have better coordination than that.
Oh, that sucks.
Zapata really doesn't do anything until the Constitutionalists are like on Morelos's door, on his state's door.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And by that point, I mean, he's taken the whole brunt of it now because Villa's almost spent. I mean, he's still around. He's doing a little bit of guerrilla warfare, but he's vastly weakened. And so Zapata is, I mean, he has to retreat. He keeps up the rebellion, but similar to Pancho Villa, he's really weakened.
Yeah.
Divide and conquer, right? So while they're struggling, you know, to make use of each other as allies, the Constitutionalists were doing a better job of that. For one, in November 1914, Carranza got the Americans to leave Veracruz by agreeing not to demand any reparations for their invasion.
Okay.
So
cool.
that helped the war effort, I guess, from his point of
Yeah,
view.
he doesn't have to worry about them.
Another ally that they had were called the Red Battalions.
Okay.
And these were militant workers who were organized by an anarcho-syndicalist labor union called the Casa de Obrero Mundial, the House of the World Worker.
Okay. Did they sign up for this war by mistake?
That's what I was wondering. And I couldn't find, like, why they did that, but for some reason they throw in with Carranza. Maybe they thought he was the better bet or something. I don't know.
That's so weird. If they had fucking joined up with the other two and they had stayed together, we could be talking about a cool socialist state.
Yeah, but 7,000 of them join up with the Constitutionalists. So that, I think, kind of bad look.
Yeah.
By August 1915, Carranza had retaken Mexico City. And by October, the U.S. recognized him as President of Mexico.
And that sucks.
Yeah, like I said, Zapata and Villa continue, you know, to fight for their causes in a local level and kind of a guerrilla warfare sort of thing. But it's no longer the organized, like, resistance force.
Okay, bummer.
Yeah. Carranza takes power and is not really radical.
Yeah, well.
You mentioned. Land reform, he starts returning confiscated lands to their former owners.
Aw, dickhead.
As long as they had supported him politically, you know.
Okay.
He vetoed laws that would let peasants use land that was not being cultivated.
Fuck that. Okay.
Yeah. That labor union that had supported him, he dissolved their red battalions the next year.
Oh my God. Of course he did.
And then when they start striking, he uses the army against them.
Okay, yeah. That's why you don't help liberals,
Yes.
anarcho-syndicalists. What are you doing? Ugh.
Yup.
I think somebody misread a flyer. There had to be some sort of snafu with why they agreed.
I don't know. I mean, like...
Okay, the names are very similar. Constitutionalist, conventionalist. Maybe they thought they were helping the other guy.
Yeah. This guy looks way different than the
His mustache is not as
drawings.
impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, in August 1916, he went ahead and busted that union up with the cops. And went for good measure, went ahead and made striking a capital offense.
Capital as in you can get like the death penalty for it?
Yeah, put him up on the firing
What
squad.
the fuck? Okay, this guy sucks.
Yeah. However, he had a few good points.
Okay.
So one thing he did was he kept Mexico out of World War I.
That's good.
Yeah, there was a thing called the Zimmerman telegram.
I heard about that.
Yeah, you know what it is?
Yeah, it's like Germany sent a a telegram to Mexico being like, hey, what's up? You want to be friends? And they like didn't say yes, I guess.
Yeah, basically. they were like, do y'all want to undo the Mexican-American War and get all that land back? And Carranza was like, let me check.
Hold on, I'll get back to you.
He puts a study together, and his guys come back, and they're like, no way, we can't do it. We're not strong enough, basically.
It's a bad idea.
And so he's
we
like,
just fought a war.
Then no,
Yeah.
And then later in the war, the U.S. is talking about straight taking over parts of Mexico, the Tehuantepec Isthmus and the Tampico oil fields. The isthmus it joined the Atlantic and Pacific before the Panama Canal days. It was like a land route over.
Yeah.
So like the thin bottom part of Mexico, right?
Okay, yeah.
And Carranza said, dude, if y'all try that, I'm just going to set the oil fields on fire.
Okay, that's a pretty good move.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I thought that was, and they were like, whoa, shit, okay. That was cool. The big thing that he did that was great on accident was call a constitutional convention in September 1916. And the reason it was good was because it really wasn't in his control. And so when the delegates show up, there's very few of them that are conservative. Most of them are actually radicals who want land reform.
Okay, weird. Yeah, he sent out a party invite. Again, people misread the invitation and the wrong people showed up. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of represents, right? Because he took power on the battlefield, great, but he ends up having to kind of make some concessions to this social revolution that is going on, whether he likes it or not. They're not like ideological again, but they are kind of naturally like anarchistic or socialistic in their demands.
Yeah.
And so with that out there, like the Constitution ends up sort of co-opting some of the ideas from like the Plan of Ayala and puts that in the Constitution. Okay,
what happens? What kind of new shit we got?
All right, some examples of the Mexican Constitution in 1917. Article 3, free secular education.
That's a huge deal because, again, a super Catholic country, you need that.
Article 4, gender equality.
Okay.
Right to health care, housing, and an appropriate ecosystem, which I thought was a pretty good thing to include. I will note that the gender equality was not enforced, at least in voting, until nationwide until 1953.
Holy shit, that's really late, y'all.
Yeah. The next one, Article 27, is a huge one.
Okay.
Private property is a privilege created by the nation, which can expropriate resources or impose private property constraints.
I love that. Oh.
It also says they can regulate exploiting natural resources based on the social benefits and egalitarianism. And it says that, this also applies to holdings of foreign companies.
I mean, that makes fucking sense. Like, you can't just be a dragon with your horde. If we need that, we're going to, take it. Because guess what? You're part of the country. What the fuck? So this is built-in justification, at least. It's not mandating it, but it is, saying it can be done, is land reform. Plan of Ayala. Yeah. It's right there, Hell yeah. Article 28 banned private monopolies. Article 123 said you got an 8-hour workday. Nice.
Right to strike.
Nice.
Equal pay for women.
Okay.
No child labor. No company stores.
Very good.
Article 130, separation of church and state.
Very important. Kind of took a long time to get that one, huh?
Yeah. And restrictions on the Catholic Church in terms of priests and clergy members in general holding office or canvassing for political candidates or inheriting stuff, except for close relatives.
Okay.
Which I guess was a problem. Kind of, what do you think of that overall?
I mean, pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but pretty good shit in there.
Yeah. They could do more, but they're not actually Marxist-Leninists or anything.
Yeah. That's a good start. I would love it if we had the private property clause in there. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, Article 27. Need it.
Yeah.
So the Constitution's proclaimed February 5th, 1917. Carranza is easily elected as, the constitutional president of Mexico in May. And I don't know, I think that's the biggest contribution of his in his term is that, again, way far more radical than he wanted it to be. So an accidental victory, maybe.
Yeah. He probably doesn't consider it his greatest victory, but yeah.
Right.
He's that got kind of out of hand.
Have you ever heard of Pancho Villa's raid on New Mexico?
No, I know he loved to raid things.
Yeah, so this happens while Carranza's in office. It's in March of 1916. Pancho Villa raids the town of Columbus, New Mexico. Partially as revenge, like, Carranza, the U.S. helped him. And also, just because he was, like, doing his guerrilla war, but, like, he was out of supplies, so.
Okay.
And the army finds out about this, and they're like, what the fuck, the U.S., and they send in the army. 5,000 army troops. It's called the Pancho Villa expedition.
Damn, he got a whole expedition just to kill him, huh?
Yeah, they were going to go, capture or kill him, right? They use airplanes and trucks for the first time in army history.
Oh, wow.
Big, huge thing.
Oh, yeah, they had to be so loud.
Yeah, they end up failing.
He just, like, outruns them on his horse, like, these are really shitty.
They keep breaking down, and he just laughs at them. They do kill a lot of his men, 190 of his men.
Fuck.
But he gets away. Obviously, this pissed off the Mexican people who are getting invaded again. Mm-hmm. But Villa escapes to keep fighting his guerrilla war until 1920.
All right, damn, that guy's got 9 lives.
Yeah, he's cool and is not perfect at all. Like, you can criticize him a lot, but
Yeah, I've heard he was, like, very ruthless, but I don't know if that's just, like, was that
oh
his thing?
yeah, he did a lot of executions and stuff.
Okay.
Like, the Battle of Zacatecas, he was like just mowing people down until one of the Carranza generals came up and was like, hey, don't.
Could you stop? Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, super ruthless, and his guys got up to terrible shit too. I don't want to justify that. But he's just a romantic, kind of cool desperado, trope figure.
Yeah, very, like,
that way.
kind of Wild West sort of feel.
Yes, yeah. So speaking of old enemies for Carranza, though, Villa, right? He was ruthless in dealing with Zapata, who was still doing his rebellion. I mean, they were, in there. I mean, it was still a threat, even though it was localized. It's still this alternative to his model, right? It's this sort of like, anarcho-socialist sort of. Mm-hmm. You can't let that happen.
Yeah.
So it's brutal. I mean, federal troops go in there and start crushing that rebellion and capturing people and shipping off civilian prisoners to be put into forced labor on plantations.
Holy shit.
Slavery.
Yeah, that's not good.
Executing civilians. Zapata's forces are whittled away and defections begin. But Carranza wanted him dead.
Yeah.
Wanted to kill him, wanted to show him off. Here's how that plot goes down. In 1919, Zapata, more desperate, reaches out to a colonel named Jesus Guajardo, saying, hey, man, I mean, I heard, you and your commanding officer, you guys are on the outs. Maybe you want to, like, come be a revolutionary like me.
He slips in those DMs. He's just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. But the thing is that the commanding officer himself got it.
Oh, no.
And he blackmails Guajardo into setting up a trap for Zapata.
Oh, man, he got catfished.
Yeah. So, Guajardo writes back and is like, yeah, I'm in.
Oh.
Zapata, how can I trust you? Prove it. Attack this federal base. There's some assholes in there. They betrayed me. They defected. Go get them.
Okay.
And, hit the base.
Yeah.
And Guajardo says, fine, I'm going to do it. He tells the base ahead of time. They stage a mock battle. And they take those guys that he mentioned out and execute them.
Which they already wanted to do anyway, so...
No. Those are
Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind.
Who joined the... Well, it's important to note because, he executes his own soldiers to do this.
Wow, that's insane. Also, a mock battle? Like, you just make gun noises or something? What the fuck?
I'm sure, I guess they were just firing
just
at the walls
into the air.
Or something.
That's insane.
And Zapata, he's like, whoa, okay, you're the real deal. Let's meet. You can officially join, the campaign to liberate the Mexican people. I can get some ammo from you. Let's do this.
Okay.
Well, they set the meeting, and Guajardo, for some reason, gets to set where it's at.
Okay.
And so he sets it at either his hacienda or someone else's. I don't really know. But this is April 10th, 1919. Zapata shows up to the meeting, and they welcome him warmly with, like, an honor guard and, like, ceremony and stuff. And then they blow, like, the bugles. And on the third bugle call, they all... open up fire on him and kill him.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that sucks. That's one of the worst catfish situations I've ever heard of. Jesus.
Yeah. Emiliano Zapata, hero to the revolution, gunned down by a traitor. And his body was hauled off on a horse to the nearby town of Cuautla. It was photographed.
God damn it.
Kind of a la Che Guevara, how they showed him off. Photographed him, displayed it there for a day, and then buried it.
Oh my God. Gross.
Yeah. So that's how Zapata met his end.
Bummer. Man, we don't have anybody else.
Yeah, you still had Villa for a while, but he ends up retiring in 1920.
Okay.
Let's get to the end of Carranza, actually.
Okay.
He's still around, and the Mexican Revolution is still somewhat up in the air. I know we're talking about an established government, but there's so much unrest still going on.
Okay.
In 1920, Carranza, there's no re-election or anything, so he's like, I can't run again. But he tries to nominate a guy. He tries to say, this guy, vote for him, a guy named Ignacio Bonillas.
Okay.
Who's basically a nobody. I mean, he was like a ambassador or something.
Okay.
Ambassador to the United States, I think. But doesn't have a lot of influence domestically.
That's not that impressive.
People said, well, this guy's just going to be a puppet to Carranza. Mm-hmm. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And Obregón, who had stepped aside and said, I'll let you do your thing, Carranza, I don't want to get in the way. Understanding that maybe next time he's going to be up, had been plotting his own presidential race. He's like, what the fuck? This is, this guy out of nowhere. It should have been me. He'd been loyal to Carranza. That's what he got. So Carranza just doesn't care. He's like in it to disrespect Obregón at this point.
Wow.
Strips him of his military rank, accuses him of plotting an armed uprising. And so Obregón actually has to flee the capital and start that armed uprising.
Oh my gosh, he wasn't going
it.
to. That's hilarious. Wow.
He flees to Sonora, and on April 22nd, 1920, he proclaims another plan.
New plan. Who this? Love it.
The plan of Agua Prieta.
Okay.
And so he and a couple other generals who also didn't think that Carranza was doing a good job here with this new guy, a guy named Plutarco Elias Calles and Adolfo de la Huerta.
No relation?
No relation.
Okay, great.
They team up. They say, fuck Carranza.
Okay.
We're doing rebellion against him.
Doing it again. Great.
This is a real fast one. More than 3/4 of the army joined the rebellion.
Holy shit. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be a fast one.
And they march on the capital. Carranza's like,
oh fuck.
And he runs away to Veracruz, hoping to live to fight another day. I mean, sometimes you start out bad and your luck turns around. On the way, he gets betrayed. Some people are like, hey, this army shows up. And he doesn't know if this guy's on his side or not. He hadn't declared. And this guy's like, yeah, man, let me take you over here. But instead, he ends up betraying him and either killing him or in the battle where the betrayal happens, Carranza gets wounded and commits suicide.
Ooh, okay.
The account is unclear. Nobody knows. A few historians say either way, but it's like one of those things I don't think you'll ever actually know.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Mysteries. This tale has everything. Betrayal, mysteries, diss tracks.
Yes. I didn't find a good love story, so
that's the only thing. We don't have the romance angle. That's fine. We can make one up. We can say that Pancho Villa and Zapata were totally gay for each other.
People get mad at you when you do that, though, when you make up gays in history.
Whatever.
So, the threat of Carranza, gone.
Another liberal down. Who's next?
Obregón is next.
Okay.
Takes power December 1920.
Okay.
Now, he is elected on the ticket of the Laborist Party.
That's a surprisingly good name for his track record.
Well, Obregón I guess he had kind of sided with the moderate Carranza. Mm-hmm. But he himself was a little bit more understood, I guess, the use of social reform.
Yeah, and back at that meeting, I think it was hold on.
Oh, the convention of Aguas Calientes?
Yeah, he was willing to listen to the other guys, so yeah, okay.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And so this is like a social democratic party.
We're scooching on over to the left, very slowly.
Yeah, we are. And so he's in charge. Here are some things that he does.
All right, let's hear it.
Because this is the phase of the revolution where we're almost to no more, big violent upheavals and stuff, almost. So some of his highlights, for one, he does some land reform.
Okay.
Around 1 million hectares of land is redistributed, which sounds like a lot, but he actually could have done way more. That's about 1.3% of the agricultural land in Mexico.
Yeah, that's not very much then. Okay, shit.
So he came out like basically saying, we're going to do land reform, and then like kind of slow rolled it.
Yeah.
Because he really didn't want to do too much land reform. He was a commercial farmer himself. He wasn't a socialist, really.
Oh, shit, yeah.
He wanted to like give people sort of what they wanted, but
not really. Okay, great. So you could say he did it.
He did some other good things, though. He built a ton of new schools and libraries.
Okay.
He commissioned the famous Mexican muralists.
Hell yeah.
Diego Rivera, David Alfaro Siqueiros, and Jose Clemente Orozco.
Yeah, the big three.
Yeah. So he was like, do your murals and stuff.
Pretty cool.
It's where a lot of the popular memory of the revolution resides, really.
Yeah.
Created a Department of Labor and put a labor-friendly minister in charge of it. He supported a labor union called the CROM, the Regional Confederation of Mexican Workers.
Okay.
But this was more of a conservative move because this was less of a radical union than there were others out there.
Okay.
That were more like anarchist or communist leaning that he did not support. And so when he was like doing the strike laws and stuff and saying, you can strike or you can't, he favored his guys, the CROM.
Okay.
So kind of corrupt there.
Yeah, a little bit.
But anyway, his term ends up being over, and he endorses the fellow we mentioned before, Plutarco Elias Calles.
Plutarco is a dope name.
Plutarco? Yeah, Plutarch.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. He looks like, I don't know, just looks like a fancy man. I don't have a lot of opinions about him.
He looks like Mexican Tony Soprano.
Ooh, yeah. Yes. I like that.
He nominates him basically as his successor. This guy's great. Y'all should vote for him. And his former ally, the other guy in that trio, De La Huerta, he's upset.
Oh, man.
He tries to do a rebellion, but Obregón defeats him really pretty quickly, crushes him. It starts out an even fight, but Obregón's a pretty good general and stuff.
Yeah, he's been around.
Organized. And so it's a pretty bloody conflict, but he wins, and Calles is elected president in 1924.
Okay.
At this point, there's no more revolutionary action.
All right.
There is no more...
Done with wars, guys. We finally got a country.
Yes, the country is kind of settled. There's a lot of unrest still, we'll see. But we're entering the phase called the consolidation of the revolution, where the new Mexican state that's been created out of this constitution in 1917 now is standing on two legs and starts building its future.
So... just because of my background, I'm going to tie that back to the muralists, because that was very much their job of like, hey, we need to come together as a country. We need to like kind of, I don't want to like totally talk out of my ass here, but I think there was a lot of effort to like standardize some of the history maybe, or like kind of come up with a national identity. Yeah,
I think that's right. The next few leaders that we'll look at are going to be people who fought in or served in as generals in the revolution. So everyone's going to be tying back whatever their project is to the legacy of the revolution.
Yeah.
And that's very much what people are building on.
Yeah.
And from less of a leader standpoint, the people are still trying to make sure and still trying to make their society reflect the ideals that they went into the revolution with. That's still the big fight. Even though we're not on the battlefield anymore, we're still trying to make that happen in the, in the political arena.
Yeah.
So something about Calles, he builds a lot of schools, more than 2,000 schools.
Cool.
Creates a public health ministry, regulates like electronic communications, radio basically at that time.
Okay, yeah.
Gives illegitimate children the same rights as those married parents.
Nice.
Because he took shit for that when he was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Passed a new oil law, which was pretty good. Is based on, it would strictly enforce the that Article 27.
Oh, the one that I liked, yeah.
Yeah. So it meant that they could nationalize oil.
Okay.
And the U.S. hated that. All right.
Shocker.
The American ambassador went out there and called him a communist. started calling his regime Bolshevik and referring to Mexico as Soviet Mexico.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Like, meanwhile, they're crushing leftist movements. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They did not do the reading.
That's for sure. Though I thought it was kind of cool. The first embassy that the Soviet Union opened up was in Mexico.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that Caius did was go after the church, basically.
Okay.
So he's very anti-clerical. That's one of the big things he's known for as president. He made a law called the Caius Law, where priests wearing their garb in public faced fines, and if you were a priest who criticized the government, you could go to prison.
Holy shit.
So lots of stuff. Started seizing a bunch of church property and closing religious schools and shit, and people got mad.
Yeah, that seems intense. The not wearing priests or not wearing clerical garb, that's very like Soviet Union. They did that too at one point. Like, you can be religious, just not in public.
Mm-hmm.
That's intense.
And it sounds just, I don't know, to me, it's not so important if I show off to everybody what faith I am or something, but it just sounds inconvenient to like, damn it, I have to like bring my clothes to work, you know.
You gotta have a locker.
But this kicks off the popular resistance that grows against this, ends up springing into violence, and you have what's called the Cristero War.
Okay.
Which is in 1926 and actually outlasts Caius in office through 1929. Mm-hmm. It's not like anyone's trying to overthrow anyone necessarily. It's more of like an armed uprising saying like, hey, fix this sort of thing. Okay, don't do this anymore. Or you won't, we won't follow this law.
Yeah, okay.
But it's real violent and it's disorganized. So it's like very popular in terms of just mob violence, really. On both sides, ends up being around 250,000 people killed.
Yeah, it's very bloody.
That violence. But once Caius's term is up in 1928, Obregón comes back because they changed the law to where like now you can be reelected but not consecutively.
That's so stupid, but okay.
And so everyone's like, well, it's Obregón. We loved him. And he runs unopposed. And then he was assassinated before he got into office.
Oh, that's not usually how that works. Okay. Shit.
Yeah. A Catholic militant assassinated him.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And Caius at this point is like, oh, shit. Okay. So he appoints a guy, Emilio Portes Gil, to be like interim president for 2 years until they can hold new elections.
All right.
And this starts an interesting phase of Mexican history called the Maximato.
Okay.
Where Caius, whose nickname is El Jefe Maximo,
all right,
ends up being kind of the real power behind the presidency.
I'm realizing we're not giving a lot of translations because we're selfish, I guess. El Jefe is like boss, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the supreme boss, basically.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's okay. I will say it sounds cool, but problematic.
Yeah, it does sound cool. But he starts exercising power behind the scenes, basically, right?
Yeah.
He's going to be manipulating and really the one who people look to. And the reason he's able to do this is because in 1929, he sets up a political party called the National Revolutionary Party.
Cool name. Again, not sure on that one, though.
Yeah, this party will later change its name to the Party of the Mexican Revolution in 1938, and then the Institutional Revolutionary Party in 1946, also known in Mexico today as the PRI.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah, I've seen their signs.
They do have like a good logo on it, I think.
They do.
But Caius is able to use the PNR party apparatus to like make sure he's got control and his loyalists are in place where he wants to be.
Okay.
So he put this guy in power, Emilio Portes Gil. He's followed by Pascual Ortiz Rubio for 2 years, who then, hated the job and quit because he's like, I just keep getting bossed around, but I'm president. This sucks.
Yeah.
And then he's followed for the last 2 years there by Abelardo Rodriguez.
Okay. Wow. So he just like has those little puppets.
Yeah. So that lasts, from 1928 to 1934.
That's a long time. Okay.
Some highlights of that, they do bring the Cristero War to an end.
Okay. Yeah.
They just do amnesty and then kind of like roll back a little bit, back down from the anti-clerical things, basically.
Okay. They're like, yeah, nobody liked that one. Let's try something else.
Yeah. That one. They do minimum wage laws tied to the cost of living in each state.
Okay. That's not bad at all.
It like sounds like a pretty easy thing to do, right? We should maybe do that.
I mean, literally has a minimum in the title. So yeah, it is the minimum you can do.
These presidents and Caius behind them. They built schools, they built hospitals, they built housing. During this time, they built the Chapultepec Zoo.
I love that place. It is the largest green space in Mexico City.
Oh, awesome. I did not know that.
Well, just Chapultepec Park in general.
Park, yeah.
It's like, it's for non-Mexican listeners, it's like their Central Park.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I did shit my pants once at Chapultepec Zoo.
In case anyone was wondering.
In case someone was wondering, that was me looking for those red pandas and having a bad day.
Oh, man. So this period, the Maximato, comes to an end when the party selects as its candidate for the 1934 election a guy named Lázaro Cárdenas.
I've heard about this guy for some reason. I don't know why.
I probably talked about him because I think he's cool.
Okay. Oh, was he? This is stupid. Was he one of the guys you could play as in that video game where like you ran governments?
Hearts of Iron?
Maybe.
I know in Hearts of Iron you can play as all sorts of leaders, and when you start with Mexico, you start as Cárdenas.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that's the guy. The thing is, Caius thought, of course, this guy wouldn't have got the nomination if he didn't think that Caius could control this guy, right?
Ooh, was he doing a scheme?
Well, Cárdenas really wasn't, I don't think he was scheming. He just wasn't about to be controlled.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? He was a reformer, and Caius was like, that's fine, but he'll get in there and do what I say. But he was wrong.
Hell yeah.
Caius was way more, we talked about it, anti-union, whereas Cárdenas was pro-union.
Hell yeah.
Caius, by this point, was like pro-fascist.
Oh.
He supported this paramilitary group called the Gold Shirts.
All right. I mean, that's kind of a cool name, but not the fascist part. That's not cool.
No, it's bad. Yeah. And Cárdenas was like, no, those dudes suck. They like attack minorities and stuff. Like,
fuck that.
And so when he gets into office, Cárdenas starts removing supporters of Caius from posts, and exiling them. And eventually he exiles Caius too.
Nice. He took that shit down from the inside, like the one time that worked.
Yeah, it does work for a while. He deports them. Caius is alleged to have been reading Mein Kampf when he was arrested.
Ooh, that's hilarious. Okay.
Not a good look.
Glad we got rid of that guy.
So yeah, by April 9th, 1936, he's gotten rid of Caius and he's on his own. And the way I see Cárdenas is that he's like kind of the culmination of the Mexican Revolution.
Oh,
it is all downhill after him. Like,
fuck.
But he's like he
was the goal.
Yeah, it's incomplete, I think, but he does a lot of the stuff. Okay, so some highlights. Land reform is the big one.
Hell yeah.
Finally, he redistributes 180,000 square kilometers. Okay. Convert that to hectares, which we had before. The guy who did 1 million, but it wasn't a lot. Cárdenas did 18 million.
Holy shit. That's way more. Okay, great.
Yeah. Redistributes this to peasants. He also creates ejidos, which are these agrarian collectives where community members have the right to use communal land that had been expropriated from landlords and was now owned by the Mexican state. So they don't own it, but they can use it.
That's awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah. This is not fully, but it is somewhat of a realization of that Zapatista goal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is land reform at the national level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He also created peasant reserve militias under the control of the army as a way to like protect against regional strongmen pulling crazy shit, or vengeful estate owners saying, "Hey, you expropriated my land, give it back."
Yeah, you gotta protect against that. Like he understood. That's awesome.
And this lasted. The ejidos thing lasted until 1992, when this dick named Carlos Salinas de Gortari modified our favorite Article 27.
No, I love that one.
And instead, he changed it to allow privatization and the sale of ejidos.
Boo. Ugh, and he was a pre-guy, too. What a fucking...
Yeah, but by that point, the pre was completely neoliberal. Privatization all over the place.
Oh, what a fucking shithead. Okay.
Yeah. What's another big thing that Cardenas did? In 1936, there was a dispute between the Oil Workers Union and foreign oil companies. And Cardenas said, I'm going to side with my guys, my oil workers.
Hell yeah.
And so he cancels oil concessions to foreign companies. And they're like, what? What are you going to do? Nationalize it? And he's like, yeah, I am.
Okay, great.
March 18th, 1938, nationalizes Mexico's petroleum reserves, expropriates their equipment, agrees that he's going to compensate them. And in doing so, he creates Pemex, Petróleos Mexicanos.
Well, unfortunately, right now, they're famous for setting the ocean on fire. Not a good look.
Yeah.
I have a weird soft spot for them just because, like, I recognize their tower in the skyline.
Yeah, because I guess where we visit is close to that. They, as controlled by a government that's falling into neoliberalism, it makes sense for that to happen. The nationalization inspired a spontaneous 6-hour parade in the Capitol.
It sounds like a great party. Would love to go to that.
Hell yeah.
It's one of the few times I would consider time traveling backwards. I'll go to that parade.
And just make sure you don't lose sight of your time machine so you can get back. Of course, the United States and Britain were pissed. The British severed diplomatic relations. They did a boycott. But I mean, when World War II rolled around, everybody wanted some of that Mexican oil.
I'm sure they did.
The U.S., they had left and taken everything that wasn't nailed down, so that, they didn't, so they couldn't use it basically. And they had to train up new guys. But when World War II came around, they sent technical advisors in to make sure that oil was flowing.
I'm sure.
What else? He sold guns to Republican Spain during the Spanish Civil War.
Nice.
Also took in refugees from that conflict. Also allowed Trotsky, who had been exiled from the Soviet Union, allowed him to stay in Mexico.
Very close friend of Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera.
Yeah. He, continued the process of building more schools, more roads. Started to be like, oh, what if we do like education that's like socialist and like kind of anti-clerical and stuff. But the Catholics started really riling up again, and he backed off of that.
Okay, man.
Tried to get women's suffrage passed, but it was blocked by some jerks.
I forgot that we still hadn't done that one yet.
Yeah. They blocked it, and for the crazy reason that they said women, or what would be the problem with women voting, do you think? What would they say?
I don't know. They're too emotional.
Too easily convinced. They said women would just vote the way their priest tells them to.
Oh my God. I will say my mom would definitely do that. But that's our grandmother. No, that's hilarious and terrible. Wow. I hate that.
Yeah. Those are some of the highlights. We don't have to get into everything he does.
Okay.
He did a lot of cool
shit. Yeah.
And I think that the main point we talked about was focused on the demands of the people. That Article 27, that, Mexico belongs to Mexico, to the people, and we can expropriate even your oil. You know? And we can expropriate your land. We can do land reform. We can make sure that the people have what we need and deserve. Again, we only want the earth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, yeah, again, it could have gone further, but yeah, that's some cool shit. I'd be very pleased if any of these things were happening.
Yeah, for sure. And again, after Cardenas, he's followed by more conservative politicians in this pre-machine that really, they're never that radical again.
Damn, bummer.
For a while, they are kind of like following a more or less kind of social democratic-ish line. But it gets worse.
Yeah.
So, but that's for another time. That is the full entirety of the Mexican Revolution and its aftermath.
Holy shit, that was a lot. Damn, okay. Lots of drama.
It really, it had, like you said, it had it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were missing the, love triangle or something. That's fine. We can find one somewhere. Yeah, that was intense. That would make for a great mini-series.
Yeah, it super would.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot.
So Mexico has nationalized healthcare. Was that during this weird socialist time?
It is actually right after this guy, so I guess it doesn't get completely worse. It's in 1943 that they start the Mexican Secretariat of Health and Assistance, and they're kind of like merging a few different organizations into that, and they start the Mexican Social Security Institute and Children's Hospital, which they are providing for health for the population, so healthcare, I guess.
I mean, I think that's interesting because, I mean, we, having family there, have definitely heard stories about like how slow and inefficient it is. But again, we also grew up during like extremely like corrupt times of Mexico and like really just bullshit in the government in general. So like that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I will add that like it is very inefficient, right? And slow, but it does cover everybody.
Yeah, it's just fucking free.
And so here's the thing with that is that when you have private healthcare, you have insurance through your boss or whatever, through your company, it's still slow and inefficient.
It really is. No one's ever like, wow, I went to the doctor and that was easy.
Yeah.
Unless you're very rich.
Rich people have concierge doctors. Like they have doctors on call. Everyone else, you have to set up an appointment. You got to go wait. It's not that bad. But like whenever you send stuff off and stuff, they have stuff up in the offices. They're like, this is going to take weeks, Yeah. It's fine. And it's like, you have to queue. You have to wait for your stuff anyway. And that's if you can pay for it. Ours is more efficient, I guess, in terms of speed. But for how much fewer, what percentage of the population, doesn't get covered
actually do that. Yeah. That's a huge thing. And especially if you're looking at like specialists and stuff, like trying to find, I don't know, like a good like psychiatrist or something, like that can take a long time. Like the more specialized you get, the longer you're going to wait.
And another thing is you have like this stupid, I need to choose the right, I don't know. To me, it's kind of dumb because I'm someone who's just like, well, they're the doctors, they know things, and I don't. And maybe that's just me being a country bumpkin or something, but I get kind of stressed, like looking for someone to, who's a good doctor, who's not, because I'm like, they're doctors, like, I just want to go to the one, and then they're like, here are the things, and there's no difference because they're right,
No, it gets really hard. Like my therapist at one point was like, yeah, you should try finding a doctor for blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, excuse me, I'm like a fat trans person. That's going to be very hard.
Yeah.
Like, to find one that just like won't be an asshole to me.
For sure.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was, I feel like this happens a lot in this podcast, is where we see those turning points and we're just like, what could have been?
Yeah.
I just want to return to that sense of longing. If
sitting in the palace.
Yeah, sitting in the palace with their boots up, Zapata and Villa, if they had, I don't know, maybe more tequila shots or fewer tequila shots, not sure what the perfect ratio would be.
Or you just, in his exile years, Lenin takes a trip to Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's just like, guys, what you need is Workers' Revolution Vanguard Party. Let's go.
Yeah. All right, Remy decided to join me. He liked that plan. He was like, did somebody say Lenin?
But not to great man history. I mean, but...
Yeah, I just feel like, in a way, I totally relate to their decision to like go back home, and because that's how they came up. That is like what's always important to them. Like it's all about local power, and like in a lot of ways, I really relate to that because I have those anarchist leanings. But it's just like you can only have that local power if you live in a country where like that's allowed. So like I feel like they should have had like slightly longer term view on that.
Yeah, and really, I got the anarchist sympathies as well. But for me, get me reading about a failed revolution, and I start saying, what you could use here is smashing the state and establishing a worker state, I start thinking about
those Marxist-Leninist
state and
roots.
revolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, that's what I'm thinking is like, guys, abolish Carranza's situation and put in your own, man. Take over. But, and again, we're framing it in these particular ideological stripes that they weren't using, although it's not to say that they were ignorant. Zapata, for example, did write a letter to Lenin.
Ooh, okay.
Just kind of like saying, here's what we're doing over here. I think we're like, got the same struggle sort of thing. I don't think, do not believe he received a reply.
Oh,
but
rude.
Yeah, well, I don't think they also like know if he got it or not. So
yeah, I mean, mailing things back then was really just a crapshoot.
Yeah, mailing from Mexico to Russia.
How long would that fucking
1911.
take?
Yeah.
Fuck that. Yeah, I don't want it to paint at all like, oh, they didn't know this existed. Because, I mean, like, you can see the legacy of it in, like, the Mexican muralists and in, like, their kind of relations with the Soviet Union. Like, they're kind of buds, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they had heard of this shit. It just wasn't, at that time, it wasn't the priority. And by the time they, like, had heard of this shit and were into it, like, they were in, like, a social democratic state.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay,
So,
cool.
lessons learned.
Kill your prisoners.
You know.
Don't forget to kill the generals. And if you take over a place, just like fucking go for it, y'all. Don't go home. Don't leave the party early.
It just reminds me of the July days in the Russian Revolution, where the Bolsheviks, you know, they're talking to all these like this mass of protesters out in the streets and stuff, and trying to calm them down because they don't want to like fucking piss off the provisional government too soon and get like destroyed.
Yeah.
And this guy goes out there to try to calm the crowd, one of the Bolsheviks, and someone seizes him by the lapels and shouts in his face, "Take power, you son of a bitch," when it's handed to you.
Oh, nice. I love that.
And it's just like, sometimes you want to reach back in history and be like, come on, do the thing.
You're so close.
You know?
Because, yeah, the whole arc was very much just like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Well, not really. It's more like two steps forward, one step back, maybe.
Yeah, I would
because
say
we were
so.
inching to the left, and then we backslid massively after Cardenas. But you know,
Sure, yeah. That's
Bummer.
what happens. All right. I think another good thing about this episode is it'll be a starting point for us. There's a lot of things we glossed over, went through real quickly, a lot of interesting figures we could go back and dive into. So yeah, I think there's plenty for us to explore more deeply in the future.
cool. What are we doing next week?
Okay, next week I believe we have a reading.
We do. We are going to be reading Capitalism and Disability by Marta Russell and Ravi Malhotra. So we decided to start with a reading for this topic because neither of us know a lot about this subject. So yeah, I mean, full transparency, we don't know about it, so we're going to research it.
We're going to research, we're going to learn, and present to you what we've learned, discuss that, and definitely one that we'll be looking for y'all to chime in with some good feedback of what we need to learn more about, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. If you have suggestions for further reading or just like people who are really good on this shit, like send it our way.
Yeah. So I think we are good examples of this. Broadly speaking, on the left, sometimes we overlook this or don't pay it the attention that it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of reaching out, in the meantime, between episodes, you're thirsty for that leftist content, find us on the internet. We are on Twitter at teachcommunism, Instagram at teachmecommunism. You can send us an email, teachmecommunism@gmail.com. All those places are great for episode suggestions. Like, hey, dummy, here's where you read about disability stuff. Like, whatever it is you want to send us. So yeah, send it our way. You also should go rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Even if you're not an Apple user, you can totally do it. It really helps people find the show, and it's like a big driver of that. You can also like share us on Spotify. Like they have a share function where you can like post your Instagram, your Twitter, or whatever it is. So like do that. We're on YouTube, if that's how you like to listen to podcasts. If you know a guy who's just like, I don't do podcasts, I only do YouTube, then send them our stuff. And finally, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/teachmecommunism. For $5 a month, you get access to all of our notes. I have been reading along these notes as we went, and they're good. I liked it because I got to click on the links and look at everyone's cool mustaches.
There were so many, right?
There were a lot of mustaches, y'all.
Lots of mustaches, some beards too. I think Carranza had an excellent beard mustache combo.
Oh, I forgot. Hold on. Hold on, I gotta go back. There we go. I had to find his first instance. Venustiano. What a hell of a first name.
Venustiano, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's a Trotsky-looking dude.
Right? It's all...
Yeah, it's
all
pretty crazy.
coming out. It's great.
Anyway, yeah. Obviously, you could just Google their mustaches, but this is a conveniently organized archive of mustaches and also actual history. And you get access to the backlog, too, with that. So all of our previous episodes, it's a handy little resource.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, those proceeds will go to a local mutual aid fund. So not us.
Yep. Support the people. Solidarity.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being a great student.
Yeah, thanks for doing all this research. This looked like a ton of fucking work.
It was the main thing was staying disciplined, man, not going down too many rabbit holes.
Yeah, like there are a lot of interesting people in this. I definitely would have just been like, who's this guy? What's his deal? Just watch a documentary about him for a minute.
Yeah, but it was fun.
Nice.
Thank you, listeners out there, for tuning in. You guys are great.
Yeah, for sure.
Rejoin us. Come back next week for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session.
I have to wait because my animals are fighting. It's gonna pick up on the mic. Okay, bye, y'all.
Bye.